If you have always faced problems in getting consistent appointments on your calendar, then this video is for you. So I had a conversation with one client recently, and basically, he's already a COT producer. He's done pretty well for himself. And, when he joined us, he wanted to learn from us exactly how do we do prospecting via social media, right? Not just by posting content, but really the ability or the skill set to reach out to people via IG, Facebook, Instagram, or even like LinkedIn, right? And so during the first week, I give him all the action steps, all the things that he needs to do, the scripts, templates. And within the first few days, he actually got the results, right? He managed to set appointments, he managed to actually meet them, and just pending closing at a point in time. And he shared a win. Then after that, we had a check-in review for him, and he started to say that he said hey Ben, this isn't working out as much, right? Anymore, right? And then the appointments slowed down, people are not replying, so on and so forth. I basically look into his entire process, and we realized, okay, that the reason why he stopped getting appointments as consistent as likely to be wasn't because of the strategy or the scripts or whatever. It was because, wait for it, okay? It was because he decided to not make prospecting intentional. Now, what do I mean? A lot of appointments, he was swamped. And what happens here is that as he was going for appointments, instead of making prospecting a non-negotiable, what he literally happened or did, right, was that he started to prospect in between appointments, right? So if you think about okay, maybe it's 1 p.m., his appointments finished at, let's say, 2 p.m., for example, and then he had a 15 minutes break before the next one. And so he started to do prospecting then, right? Replying people, so on and so forth. And he kind of do it on and off. And I asked him, I say, okay, how consistent are you in really executing the process and how much time really spend? And he said, well, I don't know. Whenever I have time, right? And that was when I knew that was really the key problem, right? And so my point is this, right? Is that I think that at least we've seen in our clients is that, yeah, sure, it's a skill set problem, but a lot of times also is because the reason why your appointments are not as predictable or as consistent is because the input of your prospecting hours and the state in which you do the prospecting, right, wasn't clear or wasn't consistent. It sounds so simple, right? But the thing here is that people take prospecting for granted, right? It's when that 1 week they have a lot of appointments, then they feel like prospecting takes a back seat, and then during the next week when they do have many appointments, then they feel like prospecting is important, and then it becomes like the vicious cycle. At least for me, is what we tell our clients. Yeah, I hope this will be helpful for you because this is literally what I did when I was an advisor, earning about $500,000 in the first 2 years when I was a student advisor specifically. What happened here is that I made it clear that every single day, the moment I wake up, the first 2 hours of my day, right? Sometimes, sure, it could only be 45 minutes because I have certain events or I have back-to-back appointments. But I made it a point that every day when I wake up, the first thing I will do is to prospect, right? The first thing I will do is to prospect. And so it's the moment I wake up, right, I started to DM people, I started to have conversations, right, whether it's my friends, acquaintances, or prospects, right, all meaning say that people whom tried to close but didn't manage to, right, follow-ups, talk to my clients. I spend every day, the moment I wake up, doing that, okay? And I do that because I know that no matter what happens at the end of the day, right, no matter whether I fail to close certain appointments, whether I'm too busy or whatever it is, I don't have time, whatever, in the rest of the week or rest of the day, right? No matter how I screw up my sales process, right, or I didn't manage to close, it doesn't have that kind of impact or negative impact on me because I'm always doing prospecting. So I know that as long as I'm always doing the prospecting every single day, every single morning, and I've never missed a day, I know my appointments will always be filled. It will always be filled. You want to make prospecting as intentional as you can. You need to understand that prospecting is the only thing, in my opinion, prospecting is the only thing that will give you another chance in this industry every single day, right? Your sales screw up, fine. You're prospecting, so you always get appointments. People don't show up, don't worry, because prospecting solves it, right? Your clients left their policy, don't worry, because prospecting solves that. You want to pay your family bills, right? You want to take care of your family, you want to take care of your kids. Prospecting is the one that is going to help you do that. One of the key things that we speak a lot about, the key themes, right, or slogan, if you call it, that we speak a lot about in our community is that prospecting never stops, okay? Prospecting never stops. The only time prospecting stops is when you leave the industry. Okay, then you can stop prospecting. Prospecting never stops, right? Whether even if you become a seasoned advisor and maybe you're 15 years in business, and these are advisors that we do have as well. Prospecting never stops. The form of prospecting could be different. Even then, right, if you are 15 years in business, for example, you're still reaching out, you're still prospecting in the form of reaching out to your clients because you still get appointments. And my definition of prospecting is just to get a business appointment. You're still going to prospect your clients, and maybe you're going to put out content, maybe you're going to do lead magnets, etc. And those are all different forms of prospecting. You want to make sure that it's intentional. And I always like to make it a non-negotiable the moment I wake up, because that's when, nobody really bothers you. You don't have to firefight, and you're just in such a better state to really have conversations with people, or just to do things that's really important. And there's nothing that I could think of that's more important than prospecting. You want to devote the most amount of energy, the most amount of time to the one activity that matters, right? Which is prospecting. Maybe if you're doing cold calls, for example, right? Like you might not be able to call them at 6 a.m., for example, but you want to make sure that there's always time blocked out, right? Maybe it's 10 to 12, right? Every day. And that's what you commit to every single time. Like this is what some of my clients tell me too, which is like, hey Ben, but what happens if my appointments are filled? It's okay. Like if your calendar is already filled with appointments for the week, and you're like, oh no, right? I shouldn't prospect now because like my appointments are already full, and next time I schedule could be 3 weeks later. Like you shouldn't think that way. The thing is that if you have whatever prospecting you're doing now, let's say this week, okay, it's Monday, this entire week is already full. You still do the prospecting because you're filling up next week. And then when next week is, let's say for example, right, next week comes and you're filled for 2 weeks, it's fine. You continue to prospect, and then you fill up the third week, because at the end of the day, it's like there could be so many variables even after you set the appointment, right? They might not show up, they might have cancellations, last minute things. You don't want to kind of like go into a rut. You don't want to go into a vicious cycle of like, oh no, now I need to find more appointments because your calendar is empty. You always want to make sure that your pipeline is always full. And I think that that's literally like the most important thing that one could ever do. And I think that prospecting and having a fuller calendar gives you more leverage, right? It gives you more leverage in a sale, because you know that like, hey, even today, worst case, maybe you can't close the sale, but don't worry, because guess what? You got another like 10 more appointments lined up, right? Or you already know that next 2 weeks you're already full. And so if this doesn't go through, it's fine. This person can take his or her own time and he can go back to it again. If you don't want to run out of appointments, if you want to make sure that you always not just survive in the industry, but also succeed, make sure that prospecting is like the number one thing you have to commit to every single day, because it gives you more at bats, it gives you more chance. If you mess up, it gives you more room for error, right? If you just do the prospecting right. Now, rule of thumb. So I think there are really two things that at least we tell our clients, and maybe this will be helpful for you. I mean, because it worked a lot for them, which is number one, make sure that every day, right, there is a certain time that is blocked out for prospecting. Usually in the morning is the best, right? Because once you start firefighting everything else, like you're just not in the right state to prospect, or you feel tired by the time you reach home at night. So I would say like prospect, make it non-negotiable. Ideally, you want to have 2 hours. 3 hours is the best, right? I usually like to call it the 4-hour rule. If you can do 4 hours of prospecting every single morning, you'll never go hungry. That's number one. And number two is making sure that you commit to that every single day. Business ain't complicated, okay? It's hard, but it's not complicated. And so you just need to make sure you prospect like every single day. I can virtually guarantee you that you'll never run out of appointments, no matter what prospecting methods you're using. For us, like we teach a lot on like, again, social media platforms to reach out to people. You can do that on the bed, and that's what allowed me to do it back then as a student advisor, because I had school and everything else, right? So I didn't have time to do roadshows and cold calls or whatever. So that's basically what we do. And I hope that this will be helpful for you, because at the end of the day, it's just prospecting. I'll give you one more like pro tip here, which is, if you're thinking, okay, but Ben, like, sure, maybe I set aside 3 hours of prospecting every day, but I don't think that I have enough context to do 3 hours of prospecting, right? And so what I do, without going into in depth for the sake of this video, first of all, don't worry about what to do. Just make sure that you actually have a 3-hour block or 4-hour block, right? That's number one, right? That's actually the hard part, because once you actually block out 4 hours, your mind will eventually find something to do. Right now, for us, it could be, again, reaching out to people on IG, Facebook, Instagram, following up, texting your clients, building conversations, and reaching out them again for reviews, cross-sell, upsells, getting referrals. Or number four, you do content, right? You do content, you build lead magnets, you build digital assets that actually brings and provides value to the people around you, and then you put on your social media, right? And then you do these 4 things every single day, like every single day. Trust me, like I'm doing the prospecting, right? Like doing content right now, doing my ads, doing marketing, so on and so forth. It's like I don't have enough time. I'm trying so hard to find more time, and I'm already waking up at like 5 a.m., right? Like I'm trying to find so much more time that I could have to just really do marketing, do prospecting, so on and so forth, and so that's basically my 2 cents. I hope this will be helpful for you, and just keep going, and I'll see you in the next video.